Hi everyone! So today's video will be about, well, as the title says, tips on selling art supplies. But other topics will also be included as well. I'll leave timestamps below and you can skip to parts where you're interested. Right off the bat, I just want to let you know the visuals you're currently seeing on screen as well as for the rest of the video are footage from when I was packing my orders. If I talk about anything that requires some visual aid, I'll put it up on screen. But for the most part, you can treat this like a mini podcast. Alright, so most of you already know, but for those of you who don't, let me quickly bring you up to speed. Sometime in January this year, 2025, I started selling away my art supplies, which was dubbed as my 2025 D-Stash sale. I had never planned on selling my stash, so going through the process was definitely a unique experience. One that I was certainly not prepared for, but I learned a lot from the whole thing. It was really difficult for me to find a way to convey all the information in a sensible manner, but I will try my best. I've organized this in a numbered list type of fashion to hopefully help everyone process this a little easier, myself included. Please note that my experience with selling my art supplies was purely to convert what I had, which were secondhand art supplies, into cash that I could use. I wasn't selling new art supplies or handmade paints or anything something like that. You know what I mean. I wasn't looking to make profit, nor was I trying to be a shop. Just a person clearing out their stash. With that in mind, there are three large topics I will cover today: the products, the selling, and the customer service. And at the end, I'll share some of my personal thoughts and feelings. Let's start with products. Tip number 1. Figure out what you're going to keep and what you're going to sell. Then separate them. It seems like this is a simple first step, but trust me, if someone had told me this before I started, things would have gone much smoother. I definitely knew what supplies I was keeping, things I loved, and things that were too worn out to put a price tag on. Which brings me to tip number 2. Categorize your products and create an inventory list or pictures. This would help so much for when you're picking items for each order. What I did was rearrange the brushes that I was going to sell into a brush case or brush holder, in order of brush shapes. If you don't have a brush case, maybe find a tray that you can lay your brushes on. I already had my tubes all together in a drawer, so it was a matter of separating other items like with like. For example, empty palettes together with empty palettes, full set palettes together with full sets, paper products all together, and if you have knickknacks like I did, have a little basket or a box that you can throw them all into. I also had a little category for freebies. Whatever small item I didn't want to keep would go there. Things like tiny pans I didn't know how to price, used items beyond a good condition, stuff like that. If anyone was nice to interact with or bought a lot from me, I'd either give discounts or let them pick something from the freebies pile. Tip number 3, product photography. I think it's great if you could take 1 or 2 pictures of everything you have on offer, just so people who aren't interested in scrolling can take a quick glance. But the most important thing is to photograph each item you're selling individually. If you still have the packaging, great, show that. If you're selling used items like I was, show the inside so that potential buyers can see the condition of the product as well, like how much paint is left and whatnot. Taking close-up shots is also useful. You don't have to put it in your listings, but it's good to have on hand to send to anyone that may ask for more pictures of a particular product. Tip number 4, packaging. If you have the space for it, I recommend setting up a packaging station. I had empty boxes for packaging, all recycled, bubble wrap and packaging paper, and some Ziploc bags. So when I received an order, I would take a box, shop from my inventory, bring it to the station, and pack away. You'll also need things like scissors and tape. It's not rainy season in Thailand, but I've had experiences where my mail gets soaked in rain. Keeping that in mind, I try to make sure everything is covered with some sort of plastic. If you're already bubble wrapping your items, that should be plenty enough. For most items, packaging is pretty easy, but I wanted to share packing tips for two things specifically. One is packing for brushes, and the other is packing for sticky pans of paint. For brushes, I took inspiration from how Rosemary&Co pack their brushes, and so here's how I packed mine. I took one piece of A4 size cardboard, laid it down, taped down each of the brushes, top and bottom, then sandwiched it all between another piece of cardboard, slipped it into an A4 size envelope like for documents, and sent it off. Worked perfectly. Then for sticky pans of paint, I would lay down a piece of paper, followed by plastic or wax paper, then lay down the paint sticky side down, and wrap the whole thing up like a birthday present. For non-sticky paints, I just skipped the plastic wax paper step. Now, on to the selling. Tip number 5, where to sell. So I think this really depends on where you live because I'm sure every country has different platforms for selling and buying things. Personally, for me here in Thailand, I listed my stash on 2 platforms. One is obviously YouTube, but that's more for announcing purposes. I'm aware not everyone has a social media presence, so this second platform may suit your needs better. Facebook. And actually, most of my sales, approximately 85%, were through Facebook. I don't really recommend Facebook Marketplace. Your listing can get lost easily in the sea of everything else. So what I did was I found niche watercolor and art supplies groups on Facebook, and I posted in those groups. For my fountain pen stuff, I found a pen lovers group because I couldn't find a specific group for fountain pens only. Tip number 6, product listings. All right, so this is an extension from tip number 3, product photography. When you're listing your products, I recommend only listing one item at a time if they require multiple pictures. And at the end, you can include that image of all of your products on sale. For the description itself, make sure you specify what is included or not, the condition of the product, the price, whether that's negotiable or not, as well as any shipping costs. I personally also added a time frame or specific day I would be going to the post office. Earlier on, I didn't, and people expected me to go immediately the day after they make an order, and that just wasn't feasible for me. So I learned rather quickly that I needed to communicate my shipping dates in advance. For products like brushes where there are multiple items, I simply grouped them all into one listing, labeled each one with a letter because it's just much easier to refer to that way. And I would list the brush names, size, condition, and price in the description. I suggest doing this type of format for listings with multiple items for ease of reference for both parties, the seller and the buyer. Tip number 7, simplify fees. So for single product listings, I recommend just including the cost of shipping into the price tag. It's easier for people to comprehend that way, and I feel like I was able to close sales much faster because people just think, oh, free shipping, yay! Whereas when I first specified like an XX amount for shipping, I would get messages asking, oh, where do you live? I live here, so shipping should be XX amount, and so on and so forth. And it was just a hassle to communicate about shipping or like haggle shipping. So my recommendation, just clump it all up into one price. Tip number 8, incentives. So for people purchasing multiple items, I would sometimes specify a promotion like if you purchase 1 to 3 items, shipping is XX amount, but 4 items and above is free shipping. Or you can say Free shipping, but if you purchase more than XX amount, you can choose a freebie. Just like with any art supply website or shop, it encourages people to spend just a little more, but also you're able to clear more of your stash faster, which was what I was able to do. Moving on to customer service. All right, for this topic, there will be some quote-unquote tips on how to look out for or handle different types of customers, but I think this section will be more like me telling you stories about the types of people I encountered and how I dealt with them respectively. As an overview, going from best to worst, we've got the real no-fuss buyers, repeats, overly cautious, lowballers, fakers, and ghosters. Any one person can be categorized into one or multiple of these, so take that into account when you're dealing with people. First and foremost, we have the real no-fuss buyers. These types of people message you their interest, reply, and make payment quickly. No chit-chat, just down to business. Like fast food, in and out, done. But for these types of transactions to go smoothly, you yourself also have to be prepared. For example, they may say something like, "Hey, I'm interested in that paint set that you have. Do you have a list of the colors included?" Which you should already have included in your listing, but this is where the additional photos you took would come in handy. They get more information from you and can make a decision quickly. They'll usually reply in less than 30 to 60 minutes. Next, repeat customers. I tend to prioritize repeat customers because, well, I think it's pretty obvious and self-explanatory. They've already bought from you and are happy with your products. There's an ease of communication as well. Repeat customers, great. Do prioritize them. Next, we have the overly cautious buyers. These types of people are interested in your items, but they have so many questions about the legitimacy of the items, the legitimacy of your being, and everything in between. There were inconsistencies in their reply times, anything from immediate to a couple hours. There's interest there, but there's also a lot of hesitation. I've had several people accuse me of possibly being a scammer. They were worried about making payment and not receiving what they ordered, which in this day and age, where almost everyone sells online, I think there's an inherent risk we all take, which I completely understand, but as the seller myself, it's not just sunshine and rainbows either. I was taking risks as well, selling to literally I don't know who. They could make everything seem like a legit order, receive the actual items fair and square, then turn around and accuse me for not following through, possibly demand a refund. Now, thankfully, I didn't experience any of that. I just want to say I wasted a lot of my time with these overly cautious buyers. In the end, only maybe like 1 in 5 made an order. Everyone else fell through. So my word of advice is don't waste too much time on these people. You're not an online reassurance agent. If you don't close the sale within 24 hours of their first message of interest, set them at very low priority. What I did was, I told them instead of making one large order, they can make a small order and I'll cover the shipping cost for the first time. Next, lowballers. Gosh. I get it, like I'm a consumer myself. We all want things at the lowest rate possible, right? But can we please just not take advantage of one another? Lowballers usually come in strong. They see your price tag and they immediately ask for a discount. Now, I'm in Southeast Asia. I understand bargaining, haggling, bartering, whatever you call it. There's that, and there's being disgusting. If someone showed me a cheaper price online, I was happy to match that. But there were some lowballers that not only asked for low prices, but also demanded free shipping and freebies. Honestly, I love my art supplies. Even ones that I don't want anymore, I still love them, and I want them to go to good homes. And personally, I don't want to send them to bad people. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying lowballers are all bad people. Just like, for example, some are nice broke students, and I understand that, which is fine. But some lowballers, you can tell that they're just trying to take advantage of you. And at the end of the day, you're the one with the product. As long as no payment has been made and a sale hasn't closed, you're the one in charge of who you sell to. So for a couple people, I just said, oops, sorry, those items were just sold. Well, actually, I think I only did that to one person, but I also intentionally delayed replying to a couple lowballers, which made me close sales with another buyer, much more gratifying to sell to. Next, and this is probably the majority of potential buyers out there, the fakers. Obviously, there will be some people with real interest and back out, which is understandable and fine. However, I had multiple people message me, giving me like a whole list of items they want. And now I try not to make calculations hard on myself or the buyer, so wherever possible, like used tubes or used pans, I just looked at the overall condition and gave a nice price. Like maybe something along the lines of $3 per tube or like $1 per pan or whatever. And then when I tally it up and add a discount on top for them, to the point of them even telling me they're ready to make payment, then they just stop replying, going from quick replies to no replies, only to come back a few days later asking me if the products are still available. To which I said, yeah, they're still available. Would you still like them? And guess what? They don't reply for a couple more days. And I see that they've read the message. They just read it and don't reply. Then they would pop back up again and ask if they're still available. And then I say, realistically, sorry, A, B, and C have been sold, but D, E, F are still available. Would you still like D, E, and F? Then they tell me they want D, E, and F for the same price I had first quoted, but I told them I can't anymore because they're buying a small quantity, and D, E, F were all full tubes of paint. A, B, C were mostly like used up, and so it averaged it all out in the first quote, you know? The customer became angry and not understanding. Nasty words were used, and in such cases, I recommend to not engage. If you have other customers to deal with, go deal with those. But if you have no one, refrain from engaging any further with hostile people like this. At the end of the day, they're not a real buyer anyway. Some of you may ask me how to tell the difference between fakers and people who are genuinely interested and just had a change of mind. I'll tell you, it's honestly so simple. I find that real people communicate. They ask you questions about the product because they want it too, so they reply quickly. But when they decide they don't want it, they clearly tell you, oh, I'm so sorry. I think the price is just too steep for me. I'll pass on this one. I'm so sorry. Or something like, oh, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. I saw a good bargain and jumped on it, but realistically, I think I shouldn't be spending. I'm so sorry for wasting your time. Like, do you see the difference? You're not stuck waiting for a reply, wondering what the other person is thinking. Whereas, I feel like fakers, they're just time wasters. Another behavior they tend to exhibit is they tend to say their interest in high-value items or lots of items that equate to a high-value order, seemingly making us prioritize them. I guess maybe they like the attention? I really don't know. But that is why I made my recommendation. If you don't close a sale within 24 hours of them first reaching out to you, place them at low priority. The next type, we have the ghosters. So lowballers, fakers, and those overly cautious are most likely to become ghosters. However, there are some people who will send you a message about whatever, Maybe it's a question about an item, if you still have the item, whatever it may be. They send that one message and that's it. That's all you'll ever hear from them. They don't even bother reading your reply. What's that all about? I honestly have no idea. Last but not least, the scammers. Word of caution. Nowadays, there are so many types of scammers online, so just protect yourself in whatever way you can. Thankfully, I didn't encounter any scammers while I was doing my sale, but I was made aware of a couple prominent ones. Firstly, if you're selling on a platform like Facebook, where there's already a chat function available, but then the buyer tells you to add them on a different platform, be very cautious. I've heard that that's how they get you to open links that will then eventually hack your device. Secondly, there can be those people that say they didn't receive their order and demand a refund when in fact they did. So then they'd get both the product and the money, and you've lost product. And now for my personal thoughts and feelings. So I started out the sale with the intention of converting my art supplies into cash. I needed the money, and I figured I was at the point in my watercolor journey that I knew what I wanted to keep and what things I could do without. I'll be honest, when the first few orders came in, it was a little hard for me to say goodbye. Like, for example, my quill brushes. You know I love my quills, but at the end of the day, they weren't doing what they were born to do, to be used and painted with. They were just in boxes, in drawers. So I made peace with myself and let them go. It was actually very easy to let my quills go because I was sending them off to a fellow quill lover. That really made me happy. There was some regret and sadness in the beginning, but after I sent off the first few orders, a sense of relief and joy just washed over me. My art supplies were going to good, new homes where they'll continue to be used and cherished. Some were hobbyists, some were art students, and a couple were even professors. Since most of my customers contacted me through Instagram or Facebook, I was able to see some of their artwork. I'll see if I can get permission from some of them to show you. If I do, you'll see them on screen as I'm talking. If not, then that means they'd rather be anonymous. But yeah, great artists. Anyway, as I mailed out the first several orders, it really brought me joy to send off the items to new, loving homes. I thought that I could sell off stuff that I didn't need because I had duplicates of, stuff that I bought to try but didn't like, whatever it may be. I could sell all those and make room for future things that I know I'll love. Alright, seems like this video is getting really long, so I'll just stop here. I know several of you want to know what I chose to keep versus what I chose to sell and why. Definitely a fair question to ask, and I think many could benefit from my thought process as well, so I'll be making a separate video for that one. I don't know if this video has been helpful for anyone. I don't think many of us ever plan on selling our art stashes, but please do comment below something you found useful, intriguing, or totally unexpected. And if you have any tips to share, please leave them below as well so we can all use this space to discuss and learn from each other's experiences. As always, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to drink lots of water and stay hydrated.